factor in the financial danger quiz. Okay. On page 215, they talk about, okay, so you reach the point where you no longer are making it happen. You're no longer paying the bills as they become due. You start skipping payments. You can't even pay the minimum payments on the credit card bills, well, at least not on all of them. What to do, what to do, what to do. Of course, the word that pops up in everybody's mind is bankruptcy. Bankruptcy should be treated absolutely as a last resort. This is something you don't want to get involved with if you could possibly help it. Okay, you want to be able to handle it on your own or in conjunction with the creditors themselves. Because bankruptcy is a legal process, right? You're having the law intervene on your behalf to help you against lenders. Okay, that does not, lead into having wonderful FICO score or wonderful creditworthiness in the future, right? So we're going to see that when we talk about bankruptcy in a couple of minutes. But really, you have to start to try to get out of the situation on your own. Okay, and so the first step would probably be to call your creditors. Not to ignore. Worst thing you do is like the proverbial ostrich, sticking your head in the sand. Okay, but that's going to invite more problems down the road. You own up, take responsibility for the situation you're in, you call your creditors, and you try to negotiate a payment plan with the creditors, okay? Possibly creditors are more amenable to forgive part or all of the interest if they feel, because the one thing the creditor doesn't want, they don't want to get zero, right? They don't want to get 10 cents on the dollar. And these are the things that creditors may have to face if you go through the bankruptcy proceeding, okay? They much rather discuss up front a plan whereby you might pay a little bit less, but are going to pay most, right, 90% of that debt instead of 10% of that debt by being more amenable to an agreement and a negotiation process. Okay. Some creditors are even much more amenable if you can find out through the internet as to when their financial year ends, their business year ends, because they don't want to have debt problems to report to their stockholders when they have to make their annual report. So they're much more amenable at the end of their financial years to negotiate the debt down so they can keep the debts being paid on time. So these little things that you have to that you should be aware of, and try to restructure your debt. Okay. Now sometimes you don't do as well as you hoped you might do, or the debt process is overwhelming you. You start being called by possibly collection agencies during dinner hour, and it starts to get very emotional, very personal, and you may need to interpose a third party into the negotiation process. And that's when you might consider going to a credit counselor. Okay, so you see that also on page 215, accredited debt counselor. Now you got to be very careful when you get involved with these accredited debt counselors, okay, because they know, these counselors understand that you're in a rather desperate situation, right? And when somebody's calling out of desperation, that's the time they're much more vulnerable to be taken advantage of by shady professionals out there. So be sure that you're going to a credit counselor who basically is trustworthy, okay? The authors recommend that you go to the website nfcc.org, the National Foundation for Consumer Credit. And nfcc.org, they have a list of nonprofit agencies, okay, that basically specialize in credit counseling with you, and basically so you know you're getting represented in the appropriate manner. Okay, so basically just looking at a couple of articles that I've seen on the internet when it comes to these, there's something called debtadvice.org, which is provided by NFCC member agencies, okay, and they talk about what to look for, what things you should expect out of a trustworthy and reputable credit agency. They tell you basically to make sure that they affiliate with a national organization such as NFCC. You can inquire in either the New York State Attorney General's office or the Better Business Bureau as to whether there are many complaints levied against this particular organization. Okay. You want to very skeptical if they're giving you big promises, like they can save you 50 cents on the dollar. It's probably not a reputable agency, okay? It seems too good to be true. It probably is, okay? Make sure that you're getting a counseling session that is substantive, on average about 90 minutes. The initial counseling session should be, so you know basically they're not just taking your money and running away, but they are representing your interests, okay? Very important. That certainly you want the full amount of any debt repayments to go to your creditors, and that they will work with all of your creditors.